Hafaday, good evening, and thanks for tuning in to PNC's News First. We're live from the Broadcast Center, Akanta. I'm Clint Rijel.
And I'm Jolene Tovis. Thanks for joining us. Topping our newscast today, the Archdiocese of Agana has confirmed that the Chancery office will be put up for sale in anticipation of what will likely be millions of dollars in settlement money for the sex abuse victims. PNC's Janella Carrera has the details.
It's a historic piece of property that was built after World War II.
This announcement is, really kind of historical. Over 70 years of the Chancery and the Bishop's residence has been located here.
First was Bishop Baumgartner, then Archbishop Flores, before former Archbishop Anthony Apparon would take the reins for 3 decades. And now the ownership will end with Archbishop Michael Burns.
And today I wish to announce that the Chancery offices and the Bishop's residence will be relocated and put up for intended sale of the whole Chancery property located here on San Ramon Hill.
So what's the asking price?
And right now we don't have even a forecast of it. I suspect we we'll probably do some kind of appraisal, but right now we don't have a definite number.
The Archbishop says some 25 employees, the pastoral offices, and the Bishop's residence will all be moved in September, which is around the time mediation is expected to take place for the 150 lawsuits filed against the Archdiocese of Agana. The church seems to have picked up its pace in recent days since the announcement by a Vatican tribunal finding Archbishop Anthony Apparon guilty of certain accusations stemming from sexual abuse of minors dating back to the 70s. Archbishop Burns talked about the historical value of the property.
Of course, one of the highlights of the history of this place is the visit of Pope John Paul II, St. Pope John Paul II, who spent the night in the residence. I know that very much because there's plaques all over the house. Pope John Paul slept in this room. Pope John Paul resided in this house for a day, and Pope John Paul prayed at this place.
While that aspect could certainly add value to the already lucrative property, the Chancery, particularly the Bishop's residence, is also a place fraught with painful memories for some. Mark Apparon, the nephew of Bishop Apparon and one of the accusers who lodged a sex abuse claim against his uncle, says it was at the Chancery where his uncle raped him. Janella Carrera, PNC News.
Now in the triple digits, the cases against the Archdiocese of Agana continue to grow as more victims are coming forward to share the alleged sexual abuse they have endured at the hands of the clergy. The latest filing involves the sexual assault of a man identified with the initials KB, who was allegedly sexually abused nearly 49 years ago when he was about 14 years old. According to the court complaint, KB was a seminarian at the Father Duenas Memorial School on the path to becoming a priest. As a seminarian, KB was required to participate in various Catholic activities and events, but one event in particular provided opportunity for the sexual abuse to occur. The complaint states that while preparing for a fiesta for the Agate Parish, KB and another seminarian boy were in the rectory with Father Leon Murphy, a Capuchin priest. While there, KB was left alone with Father Murphy, who allegedly pulled KB onto his lap and began hugging him, asking if he was cold. It is alleged that Father Murphy then slipped his hands into KB's pants and began fondling and groping his genitals. It wasn't until the other seminarian boy returned that Father Murphy pushed KB off his lap and instructed them to leave. Upon leaving, the rectory court documents state that the other seminarian boy questioned what occurred, confessing that Father Murphy had also sexually abused him. KB is seeking $5 million in damages.
This could be the second strike for a man already convicted of criminal sexual conduct as his trial comes to a close. Over the last few days, Jerome Jose Cruz has stood trial on accusations that he groped a 13-year-old boy nearly 5 months ago. In 2010, Cruz was convicted of third-degree criminal sexual conduct as a second-degree felony for sexually assaulting a 16-year-old boy. In court today, Superior Court Judge Maria Senzon decided that Cruz's past conviction information relative to the judgment and plea agreement will be provided to the jurors to assist them in rendering their verdict. The convicted sex offender is facing charges of second-degree criminal sexual conduct. If convicted, Cruz could serve life in prison without the possibility of parole as a result of his prior conviction. Closing arguments in the case will be heard tomorrow.
Several more potential candidates for the 2018 election have picked up packets from the Guam Election Commission. Here's a look at who they are.
Here's a look at all the potential candidates who have picked up packets or had packets picked up on their behalf for either Washington Delegate, Attorney General, or Senator. Let's start first with potential candidates for Washington Delegate. Jonathan F.B. Diaz picked up a packet to run as a Republican, Madeline Berdallo as a Democrat, and Eric Lynn picked up a packet, but he listed no party affiliation. Potential candidates for Attorney General, there is only one that picked up a packet so far, Jessica Barrett. Now for potential candidates for Senator, James Moylan, Republican, Will Castro, Republican, Kate Baltazar, Republican, Benito Servino, Republican, Jack Hattig III, Democrat, Ellery Paz, Republican, Joe S. San Augustine, Democrat, Catherine Leon Guerrero, Democrat, Julius Santos, Republican, Adonis Mendiola, no party affiliation, Amanda Blas, Republican, Luisa B. Muña, Republican, Chris Dombrowski, Democrat, Mary Torres, Republican, Adolfo Palacios Sr., Democrat, Fred Berdallo, Democrat, Tina Muña Barnes, Democrat, Roy Respicio, Democrat, Jadine De La Cruz, Democrat, Alfredo Antolin, Republican, Javier Atalik, Republican, Ricky Orsini, Democrat, Jose Terlahi, Democrat, Jose San Augustine, Republican, Armando Dominguez, Democrat, Sel Babauta, Democrat, Raymond Laguatnia, Democrat, Regine Bisco Lee, Democrat, Jermaine Alerta, Democrat, Mars Johnson, undeclared, Jeffrey Wheaton, Republican, Evangelist Ivan Babauta, Republican, Eduardo Leon Guerrero III, Democrat, Laicia Casil, Democrat, Ned Pablo, Democrat, Alejo Sablan, Democrat, James Espaldon, Republican, Ian Titano, Democrat, Committee to elect Amanda Shelton, Democrat, Committee to elect John Coe, Democrat, Ryan Calvo, Republican, Committee to elect Mark Mendiola, Democrat, Committee to draft Mark Mendiola, Republican, Talina Cruz Nelson, Democrat.
And if you're wondering why Mark Mendiola's name appears twice, once as a Democrat and once as a Republican, according to Mendiola, it's because both the Republicans and Democrats have tried to draft him to run as senator. So committees from both parties have picked up packets on his behalf.
At the very first Charter Schools Roundtable meeting today, stakeholders disagreed on what extent GDOE's involvement should be with the charter schools. PNC's Janela Carrera reports.
Present were various stakeholders from the charter schools, the Guam Education Board, GDOE, and the public auditor. During the discussion, both iLearn Chief Operating Officer Helen Nishihira and GAC's consultant Marilyn Manabusa noted that their students have done well in their standardized testing scores. Nishihira also talked about the challenges of getting $8.6 million cut from their budget in the middle of the school year, but noted that along with the rest of GovGuam, they're trying to rise to the challenge. GAC's consultant Marilyn Manabusan gave a similar message in terms of having to deal with a reduction in funds. But it was in the discussion on the extent of DOE's involvement with the charter schools, as well as whether charters need to follow GovGuam procurement procedures, that opposing views were most glaring. Manabusan questioned the presence of DOE on the Charter Schools Council, stating the law that created them intended charter schools to be separate from the department. She also added that one of the sections creating charters said they should exclusively handle their own accounts.
We are all for accountability. I mean, we are. We're not saying we shouldn't be. We are trying. Like we said, we're the first charter school and we're trying our best. We don't do things purposely and intently so we could defy the law.
This was a different point of view from Guam Education Board Chairman Mark Mendiola.
And so I think that needs to be very clear to everybody around the table that if the Department of Education is going to be sharing its funds to help with the charter schools, that they too also go under the same scrutiny that we undergo.
Guam Academy Charter Schools Council member Yuka Oguma agreed.
I believe that procurement process is necessary because we're using government funds, and we should have some. We were just talking about having accountability, and that's one of the biggest things. My main concern with how each charter schools are using the funds that were given from Department of Education.
Public Auditor Brooks gave her input saying, quote, when the legislature passed the law, they said charter schools must follow GovGuam procurement regulations. Therefore, when you take money from a government, there are strings attached to it. Meantime, in regards to having purview of charter schools, Fernandez said, quote, the legislature passed laws that have funded the charter schools out of the GDOE budget and required GDOE to validate charter school expenditures. So it appears very intentional that the legislature meant for GDOE to have a major role. End quote. Fernandez says, however, that both he and the board have asked for either full separation of GDOE from charters or to allow GDOE to have greater control over charters. Janela Carrera, PNC News.
There are a couple of issues facing the court which could mean a delay in the trial of the 7 DOC detainees implicated in the murder of fellow DOC detainee Manson Ernest. Trial is set for April 13th, but whether or not the court is able to adhere to the scheduled date is dependent on the following. First is securing a legal representative for Marvin Retcham. While the court has appointed several lawyers to represent him, each appointment has been followed by a withdrawal due to a conflict of interest. To this day, Retcham has yet to be arraigned in the matter as no lawyer has represented him long enough to move forward. Retcham allegedly began the assaults on Manson Ernest, telling police that he was making Ernest pay for the crime he committed, which, according to court documents, was allegedly the rape of a vulnerable victim with Down syndrome. The second issue before the court is addressing all motions filed by the defendants. According to Superior Court Judge Anita Sokola, at this time, 3 motions have already been filed, and she anticipates many more will follow. The motions are set to be heard on April 9th. However, the court must make a ruling on each motion before proceeding to trial. In addition to this, Isler Miller's attorney, Mark Condas, notified the court that they will be hiring a private investigator, which will also be filed as a motion. Several defendants in the case have asserted their rights to a speedy trial. However, until the issues before the court are addressed, the speedy trial clock could be told, which means trial may not occur as scheduled.
A convicted rapist will not be able to dodge paying restitution to his victim as the court has denied his request. Raymond Tautau Camacho was convicted for the abduction and rape of Monique Baza from the Crown Bakery parking lot back in 2012 and is serving 10 years in prison. In November of last year, he asked the court to waive the restitution asked of him, which was the cost of a wedding ring never recovered. In court proceedings, the government stated that the request for restitution was not about money, but instead to hold Camacho accountable for his actions. However, Camacho argued that he does not have the means to pay the restitution, which amounts to just $750. This week, the court ruled on the motion denying the waiver, further ordering the restitution as a condition of his parole.
A company called Car Powership says they can offer over 200 megawatts to Guam's power system on a floating power plant that would cost less than the construction and operation of the power plant that the Guam Power Authority is proposing. Here's more.
A company out of Turkey called Car Powership says it can provide the Guam Power Authority with the 180 megawatts of power it needs from liquid natural gas on a floating power plant. Car Powership local representative Marcel Camacho believes this is a better alternative to GPA's current plans to build a new power plant in the north.
Car Powership is offering an affordable, clean, and efficient power source for the island.
Guam's baseload power plants are old, and in fact, GPA is planning on building a new baseload power plant in the north to add energy to the grid and allow them to close down old power plants like those at Cabras that have too many bad emissions.
The Clean Air Act, US EPA, is imposing fines on those old and inefficient power plants to the tune of about $39,000 per day, and that's per generator. I've heard John Benavente state publicly that we owe about $150 million in fines. He hasn't paid it yet, but that's where we're at today, and those fines keep accumulating.
Meanwhile, Car Powership Business Development Manager Serdar Kumbasar says their generators are cleaner and more efficient than any generators of GPA currently.
We use them in a combined cycle mode, meaning we utilize the excess heat from those engines and run an additional steam turbine to generate additional power. So that increases the power output of the engines and the ship itself. And also, because that extra heat that we use for power generation decreases the fuel consumption of the overall power plant. So it becomes even more efficient.
Camacho says the Car Powership can keep fuel costs down by using liquid natural gas, which has a more stable price than oil. In addition, the Car Powership company has good relationships with the major suppliers of LNG. If they get a contract with GUAM to provide power, it will include the cost of fuel, which will allow GUAM to lock in rates, so to speak. Camacho says this would eliminate the Levelized Energy Adjustment Clause, or LEAC, rates that have been increasing as the cost of oil increases.
What's happening right now, from what I understand, is GPA is actually purchasing the fuel, and they're hedging the fuel cost. So in the event that the fuel cost changes, they pass on those adjustments to the consumers through the LEAC rate. And so we feel it. We can see the rate go up, we can see the rate go down. Unfortunately, we're seeing the rate go up and up.
Camacho says the power ship would be moored at the Port Authority of Guam near the areas where containers are currently offloaded. While docked there, it'll be plugged into the Guam power grid via some minimal infrastructure that the Car Powership company will construct and supply. But what would the power ship do in the event of a super typhoon?
We want to protect the ship in the event of a super typhoon. And so the contingency plans elsewhere are that in the event of a Category 4 or stronger typhoon, looking at possibly a direct hit, we would need to unplug the ship. And typically they can do that within an hour or two, and then have the ship sail away. And we're estimating that, that whole period of time for it to be in an area where it's safe is about 24 hours or less. And then once the high wall clears, we can begin to move the ship back in and have it moored again in less than 24 hours.
Camacho believes the Car Powership can provide the Guam Power Authority with a cleaner, more efficient, less expensive, and quicker fix to its power capacity needs.
Santa Barbara students will be performing HONK Junior, which is a modern retelling of the Ugly Duckling story by Hans Christian Andersen. The musical play debuted 14 years ago on Guam, and this year it is being directed by Joyce Guevara. The play's message is that it's not what's on the outside appearance of a person that matters, but rather it is what's on the inside that matters. The play will be held on March 22nd and 23rd at 7 p.m. in the Santa Barbara Catholic School Gymnasium. Proceeds will support the school as well as the Archdiocese of Agana.
My name is Blaise Ramos, and I play Cat and Ugly.
Half a day. My name is Mary Kaloma, and I'm Ida and Marie.
My name is Alexander Allam, and I play Drake.
Half a day. My name is Beatrice Antonio, and I play the cat. Half a day. My name is Christian Delfino, and I play the role of Ugly.
See you there!
Tickets are $10 at the door for 4 to 13-year-olds. General admission is $15 and VIP tickets are $25.
All right, that's it for News First. From all of us here at PNC, thanks for watching. Stay maulig.
And have a great night.